Noel Gallagher always loved the Beatles, and the compliment was returned when George Martin, the Fab Four's producer, described Gallagher as the best songwriter of his generation. And in sales and acclaim, Oasis became the Beatles of the 1990s. Their album Be Here Now was the fastest-selling British album of all time. Noel was always in the headlines, beating Blur, meeting Blair. Oasis split up in 2009 after violent disagreements between Noel and his brother Liam, the band's singer. The senior sibling has begun a solo career with an album and tour under the name Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds.
In a lot of what's written or said about you now, people say post-Oasis or ex-Oasis. Is that how you see it? Do you see it as leading towards that and away from it?
I wouldn't like to be moving away from Oasis, no. It was so brilliant and so big and meant so much to so many people that to suddenly just say, well, that was then and this is now, would be a bit rude, I think. You know, I still play some of those songs because they're my songs and I wrote them, you know. And I enjoyed my time in Oasis right up until 15 minutes before I walked out of the dressing room and never went back. I thought it was great, and I still think it's great. And I think what we did, from being just a load of lads on a council estate with some second-hand guitars, was incredible. The fact that we stayed together so long was a miracle, and I think, I think the records stand up. And I think, I meet people on a regular basis that go on about Oasis, and it's a big part of people's lives, and I'm proud of that.
And when you perform Oasis songs now as a solo performer, are you? I suppose they are yours because you wrote them, but are you making them yours even more?
Yeah. Well, I guess because I'm a completely different singer than Liam is. Do you know what I mean? And when I'm singing those songs, I know what those words mean to me, and I can deliver them. I wouldn't say better, but I can deliver them in the way that they were written. So I know what Wonderwall is about. Even if it's about nothing, I know what kind of nothing it's about,
I don't know how. Said maybe you're gonna be the one that saves me. And after all, you're my Wonderwall.
Would Liam discuss meanings with you?
No.
He just did them?
No, we didn't discuss meaning. No, not once. Not who's this about or what's it about. It wasn't that kind of band. It wasn't art school or anything, or what are you trying to say here, man? It was nothing like that. It was, these are the words, and we would generally, just sing it, and then the arguments would start of him saying, well, I'm going to sing it like this, and I'd be like, yeah, but it goes like that. And he'd say, well, I'm going to sing it like this, and I'd be like, but it goes like that. That's what it goes like. And we'd get to a place where it was acceptable, but he never asked what it was about.
Do you find it easy to write songs?
I find it easy to write the melody and the music. That's in me. I don't know where that comes from. It's easy. I was doing that this morning. The words, trying to hang the words around the melody, I find quite difficult. And I used to struggle with it. I used to get really, not down about it, but I used to get quite frustrated about it. And now I just don't chase it anymore. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm not in any great particular rush to write another record. I'm just kind of, if I didn't write another song from today onwards, I would look back and think, I smashed it, yeah.
But you don't read or write music?
No, I couldn't read music. Yeah. No, I couldn't write music. I don't know anybody that does.
But how do you, so when you're writing a song, how do you put it to, and what's the process?
I just play the guitar, and I might be playing a set of chords for 3 months, and I will just be fascinated by the chords, and nothing will happen. And then one day, if I persevere with it enough, a melody will arrive, and then the lyrics will evolve, and then to get a band to play it, I come from the school of music, or we all did in Oasis, where you just say, right, it goes like this, I don't know. I know the chord E. I know quite a few chords, the major chords now and the minor chords. But when you get into suspended, augmented things and all that, I find that I don't know what they all are. But yeah, it was more of the punk ethic. It's like, it goes like this, just play along, copy it.
And psychologically, being a solo performer now and being on stage on your own, is that an easy adjustment?
It's easier than I thought it was going to be. I really thought I'd be a grumpy old man about it. And I'd just be, I'll just play these songs, and if they like them, they like them, and if they don't, bugger them. You know what I mean? But I kind of feel strangely relaxed about it, because I know I'm in control of it. So if I mess up, I'm only letting myself down. Whereas when you're in Oasis, if anybody messed up, you're kind of letting everybody else down. And I'm enjoying it.
When Robbie Williams went solo, he just became Robbie Williams, whereas you've done something kind of in the middle. You've become Noel Gallagher's High-Flying Birds, which sounds like a band but isn't. Really.
Yeah.
Why did you not just become Noel Gallagher?
I didn't think it was showbiz enough. I thought it was, it's hardly Ziggy Stardust,
But then Robbie Williams isn't, is it? I mean...
Well, no, it's not. No, it's not. But I didn't see my name in lights, I was passing Shepherd's Bush Empire one night, and someone was on there, and I seen something, and I think, I just don't see it. And about a few months later, Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac was on the radio, and I thought, what if I was called Noel Gallagher something? And then a few weeks after that, it was I was listening to Jefferson Airplane's first album, and there was a track on it called High Flying Bird. There you go.
And it's movable as a band. I mean, it's whoever you play with at any time.
I mean, if I ever get, I don't envisage having a stable lineup. But if I ever do, I might drop the Noel Gallagher and be the High Flying Birds. It's kind of a cop out, really. I can be one or the other. Do you know what I mean? So, still got my name on it, So people know it's me. But I see it as a fluid, changing lineup.
This is your brother Paul writing about he was a child in Manchester in the 1970s. Noel was a likeable if quietish kid, friendly to the last,
nice
but prone to bouts of moodiness, a trait he's carried on through to adulthood. Do you recognise that?
It's nice to know that one's likeable. Yeah, a likeable chap. People do say I'm moody. Yeah, I don't know where that... I do frown a lot. I don't like smiling. I don't know why. I've not got a nice smile. I don't know. I can be moody, yeah. I put it down to being a Gemini.
The account goes on. He used to love his Action Man, taking it everywhere with him when he was younger, like some sort of security blanket. He was very military-minded between the ages of 3 and 7, with loads of toy soldiers and tanks.
I do have an unhealthy obsession with the Second World War, I've got to say. And that Action Man was a bloody good friend to me in the 70s. He had movable eyes. He was a great guy. I wonder where he is. I think he ended up in rehab.
And this was your mother in the same book about you, a bit of a daydreamer and a right storyteller.
Yes, thanks, ma'am. Yeah.
Does that sound pretty much right?
Absolutely, yeah. My favourite thing in the world, apart from my wife and children and cat and all that, my favourite pastime is staring out the window. When I get on tour, I can spend hours and hours just staring out the window, just thinking of nothing. I love all that. And a storyteller, yeah, well, here we are.
Well, I mean, the example she gave was that apparently for 3 weeks you went out to school every morning with your satchel, came home in the evening, gave her quite a detailed account of the day you'd had and even what you'd had for dinner.
Yeah.
And then she got a phone call from the school saying you hadn't been in school for 3 weeks.
Yeah. I had other things going on. I was busy. I was busy trying to put a militia together and take over the next...
Invade Liverpool.
Take over the next street. Yeah, but school, I found, once you can read and write, really, you know, do you need to learn French?
What, you just didn't like school?
I didn't really think... I liked drawing, I liked art, and everybody likes PE and football and all that. And French, what's all that about? I don't need to learn French. And I was in... See, what happened when I joined my secondary school, for some reason they put me in the top classes by accident. So I was in there for the first... until there was like a holiday, and someone said, hang on a minute, he's not supposed to be in here. And there was another Gallagher, I think his name was David Gallagher, and he was with all the oiks. I don't think he's ever recovered. Probably had a nervous breakdown or something. So then when I got down, I was like, this is my kind of people here. This mob sat at the back. And I was just too interested in other things, you know, and it was very easy not to go to school. Magic mushrooms. There's a lot of them knocking about. Somebody needs to pick them.
So when you were playing truant, you were just out on the streets all day, were you?
All round at people's houses whose mum and dads were at work. It wasn't just me, like some hobo, you know, kind of dragging a satchel round, you know, dreaming of military manoeuvres. You know, there was quite a few. There used to be a few of us. You know what I mean? It was it was a social thing. Everybody did it, and there was a few of us. Strangely enough, we were all obsessed about music, and we used to go and listen to records at people's houses and stuff like that. But I went to a massive, like, you know, secondary school, and it was Catholic, and, you know, I felt sorry for my mum because she was a dinner lady, so I'd have to kind of come in for dinner and pretend everything was all right. And then I'd leave again immediately after dinner. So I was getting well fed and stuff like that.
So you just went in for meals?
Yeah. So she'd seen me, you see. Yeah. And she was none the wiser. And it became quite an art form, is to get in without being seen by the teachers and then get out again. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that side of it. It was all good. It was all good, clean fun.
Did she get angry with you, your mum?
Oh, yeah, she went berserk. Yeah, she went mental. Yeah, I mean, like I would with my children, if you found out that they weren't going to school, you'd think, well, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised if it was the lies or the fact that she was conned and made a fool out of, which was what angered her more than anything, do you know? Yeah, that's probably it more than anything. But, you know, I was destined never to need French or metalwork. I'm sorry, but where we came from, you were working on the buildings and that was it, you know. You're not going to be a French metalworker, are you?
And then you were thrown out of school for a quite minor crime.
On the last day I was expelled, as I remember it. Which I found quite petty, do you know what I mean? Leaving at 2.
Well, there's no point, yeah.
What's the point? The teacher, they didn't really like me that much. They didn't hate me, but I was always getting the strap. Always, forever, ever in the headmaster's office getting the strap. Anything that ever went wrong in that school was somehow connected to me somewhere down the line. I'm not saying I was wrongly accused of anything. It was usually connected to me somewhere down the line. But I was forever doing this. Yeah, and I think, I don't know, some flower got thrown at a teacher.
A flower bomb, yeah.
And, of course...
Did you throw it?
I'm not sure whether I did, and I'm not just saying this because my lawyer's not present. I'm not sure whether I did, but I was definitely there laughing my bollocks off when it happened. But I also thought that was a bit petty. I didn't even get a leaving certificate. Rubbish.
And did they used to give you the talk, you're obviously a very bright boy, you could do something with this, or did they just ignore you?
No, I've got to say I didn't show any promise at school in any of the art forms.
Not even English?
No, not even English. No, not at all. I wasn't really interested in anything at school. I was interested in music, listening to it. I didn't harbour any ambitions for anything. I was terrible at spelling and writing and reading. It wasn't until I left school that I was a late developer, do you know what I mean? I've never been a child prodigy. Didn't pick up the guitar till late in the day. You know, I didn't join a band until I was 24. I didn't have a record deal till I was 27. They all die at 27. I was only just, kind of limbering up then.
The 27 Club.
Yeah, I was limbering up. So, I just wasn't interested at school. It just didn't, for some reason, I didn't connect with it at all.
The standard view in books and profiles is that you were scarred by your childhood and that you've channeled that into songwriting. Is that how you see it?
I wouldn't say I was scarred, but everybody's childhood makes them what they are.
And yours was pretty rough, wasn't it?
Well, the times were rough, do you know what I mean? It was kind of the 70s and the 80s, and it was working class Manchester and Thatcher and all that kind of thing. And there was a dole, we were all on the dole. My dad was on the dole at some points. My friends were on the dole, as were their dads. It was a pretty bleak time. And, but it was no different than anybody else's. And music was an escape for me. Not for I never thought, well, I'm going to be a pop star one day. Just they didn't come from where we come from. They came from somewhere else. They were bussed in, to the BBC from somewhere else. They were not from Manchester. And music was an escape for me. It was kind of, that 3 minutes would take you somewhere else, out of the drudgery of cold northern England in November.
You say it's just like anyone else, but your dad is depicted as quite a scary character.
Yeah. I wouldn't say he was a monster. I'd just say he was a shit dad.
And violent.
Yeah, prone to it. Yeah.
And you suffered that. I mean,
yeah.
But you must be affected by that, because that's not normal, is it?
Well, I've never sat down on a couch with a psychiatrist until now, and I don't know. I've never written a song about my childhood, about any of that, and I wouldn't really feel comfortable doing it, I don't mind talking about it because I'm all right with it. I dare say that most of the kids on my street, their upbringing was quite the same, I think. I mean, and I wasn't the modelled son, do you know what I mean? I was out half the night. I was sniffing glue and doing mushrooms and all sorts, you know what I mean? And robbing stuff and all that, you know what I mean? It wasn't like I was, Aled Jones, being leathered for having a great voice, you know what I mean? I was a tricky customer. I was a bit lippy, and I don't really look back on it and think, well, if only. It kind of gave me a drive to go somewhere else, I think, I don't know.
And do you think about your father, or have you put him out of your mind?
No, I don't think of it at all. I don't have any opinion on it. I don't think bad things or good things, or I don't think maybe I should go and see him, or I don't think maybe I should go and wag my finger at him and all that. It's his loss, not mine.
The News of the World, a late newspaper, they tried to put you in contact with him, didn't they? They brought him to a hotel.
Yeah. Quite a tricky evening. Yeah. Liam overreacted and went absolutely mental. And I was of the opinion that it was just ignore them, do you know what I mean? Just ignore them. There's no point. The party was in full swing and it was a great night. And all of a sudden it kind of came crashing down. But I don't take anything like that seriously. I think it's just water off a duck's back to me.
And you don't know where he is now?
I know exactly where he is. Yeah, he's still living in the house that my mum left him in. Yeah, he's still there. He lives about 1.5 miles away from where my mum moved us to. And all my mum's sisters, we all grew up in the same place. So everybody still sees him. It's a very... Nobody cares anymore. It's a long time ago,
But you don't see him, though? No.
I don't see him, no. I live in London, don't I?
When you became a father yourself, having kids, was Was that difficult? Because you'd never seen a good example of it, had you?
No, I'd never seen a good example of any kind of parenting until I met Sarah, who is an incredible mother to the children. I've learnt so much from her because she had great parents. You know, her family, her mum and dad have been married for 150 years or something. They're still together, and so she takes that and brings it into with our children. Of course, I come from a dysfunctional family, so I'm good with the kids now. I love it. But at first, with my older daughter, I was like, I don't know.
You didn't know how to behave.
I didn't have the tools instinctively. Fathers don't. And I wasn't with her mum, you know. So fathers don't have those instinctive tools. Women, mothers do. You know what I mean? Or should do, you know. So yeah, it was a bit tricky at the beginning, but now it's great. I love it. Yeah.
But from what I've read about your mother, I mean, she did everything she could, didn't she, for you? I mean, she looked out for you.
Yeah, she's very loyal, my mum, and she would always stand by us, and she never tried to push us to do one thing or the other, you know. She was just like, whatever you do, you have to make it happen for yourself. No one's going to give you anything. And I remember, you know, playing the guitar at home, and she never said, go and get a proper job or anything like that. It was just, if that's what you're happy doing, then be the best at it that you can, you know. And that was it. She never pushed us into any particular avenue, or you should do this or you should do that. It was just like, you know, be happy, you know. She was mortified when I remember the day I was 21, and I said that I was leaving home. She's like, why? I was like, I met this girl. We've got a flat in town. That's okay. Why are you leaving home? Well, I'm 21, so what? Your brother's 23. Yeah, well, you know, it's about time though, isn't it? No. You know what I mean? They used to get offended, Irish mums.
But you moved house in the middle of the night once, didn't you? I mean, she just moved you out.
Yeah, when she left me, old fella, yeah, middle of the night, yeah. It was undercover operation, yeah. Because I wonder what would happen if my old fella would have come back, you know. There would have been bedlam. But she was very, yeah, when I think of those times, you know what I mean? She kind of brought us up on her own, really. And 3 lads, particularly one of them being Liam, it's very tricky. The other one being me and our Paul. It wasn't as much trouble as me and Liam, but at his moments. Yeah, I mean, she's kind of, she did it. She gave it all up for us, you know what I mean? And it was by total and utter chance, I would say it's because she's got great karma that 2 of her children go on to be, you know, 2 of the biggest rock stars that England ever produced, and, you know, and all that goes with it. All she got was a new garden gate. You know, Liam offered to buy her a castle somewhere in Alderley Edge, and the garden gate at the council house had a squeak on it for years. Changed it, put a gold number 5 on it. That was it. Still there. She still lives in the same council house.
And is that all she wanted from you?
Yeah, she's one of a family of 11, so she's got like 7 sisters. They all live within a 2-mile radius of each other, and she's just who she is, and she knows who she is, and she's not really. She doesn't buy into all what goes on down here in London. Do you know what I mean? She still lives in the same house, doing the same thing. The same routine. She sees her sisters and her grandkids, and she loves it.
Does she take sides in the disputes that
between me and Liam?
You and Liam?
No, she doesn't. No, like she furiously will not take sides. Furiously will not take sides.
Which as a parent you can see as the proper thing to do.
Of course, that's what parents are. They're neutral referees, aren't they? You know, I'll be the same with my 2 lads. You know, I won't take sides.
Does she ever say in the way that mothers do sometimes, can't you 2 just get along?
Yeah, of course, yeah. She was at my house at Christmas and we had this very conversation, you know, and it never resolves to anything, do you know what I mean? Sure, she says, well, I've said this to Liam and I've said that to you, and why can't you both just blah, 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 and it's, you know, I kind of, do what all Northerners do. Say, do you want a cup of tea? You know. That sorts everything out up north. Tea, yes.
And it was a Catholic upbringing. There's a picture of you at your first Holy Communion.
Yeah, I went to church for a long time, yeah. You know, every Sunday. Until my mum stopped going. I think she'd had enough. And then we were like, thank God for that. You know, church is a bit mad, isn't it?
But God comes up in the songs quite a lot, or has done.
But it's great imagery. Gods and angels is great imagery. And, you know, my wife is an angel, you know. My children are angels. It's not that, those things are not supposed to be taken literally. But God is a fascinating concept. You know, I don't think anyone in their right mind would believe it's a guy with a beard in a one-piece tunic living on a cloud playing a harp, you know. But seemingly everybody has their own perception of what it is. I don't know what my perception of it is. Don't know whether God is within you and it's just your own version of it in your soul or what. But I do write about it. I do write about the word God a lot because it's great to put in a song.
'Cause you're the only God that I will ever need. I'm holding on and waiting for the moment to find me.
There's lots of psychological theories about the position in a family and the difference it makes. And you're the middle child, aren't you? So they're supposed to get neglected and overlooked, and then the youngest one is supposed to be spoiled.
Well, the eldest is always the eldest, and the baby is always the baby, and the one in the middle looks after themselves, so they say. But I know quite a few middle children. We're all the same, very self-contained. Just do it ourselves. Not really minded about anything other than just getting on with it. Do you know what I mean?
And was it always difficult between you and Liam from early on?
No, it's only difficult when towards like from 95, 94, 95. Well, from when the band got famous, really. You know, there was always a power struggle there. Do you know what I mean? And before we got a manager and actually signed the record deal, all anybody had was my phone number. So I did all the talking for the band. And that just carried on, do you know what I mean? And maybe the others maybe felt a little bit neglected by that. I can understand that, but, you know, what can I say?
But you didn't fight as kids?
No. 5 years is a big difference when I'm 15 and he's 10. That's like you know, he's just out of short trousers, do you know what I mean? Now the difference isn't nothing. It doesn't make any difference now. But we didn't fight as children. Not that I shared a bedroom with him for years. You know, he was too busy cadging money off me is what he was doing. You know, it was perennially borrowing a fiver. Always. He never got it back.
The two common dreams of young boys are to be a professional footballer and a rock star. Did you have both of those?
Yeah. Not the rock star thing was only afterwards. The footballer, well, you know, growing up in Manchester, that's really all you want to do. And I would love to have been a footballer, played for City. And
were you good?
No, I was. No, I'm not an athlete.
You didn't like being tackled, according to your elder brother.
Right, that's right. He also has referred to me as a military genius, so I wouldn't take whatever he says with any great. Do you know what I mean?
Mm. The other thing that might have happened is you could have ended up as a criminal because you had your theft charge and probation. Were you when that happened? Did you feel shame of what had happened?
I felt bad for getting caught. What can I say?
Well, just that it was done. I mean, they were trying to punish you, and did you feel you'd done something?
Oh yeah. You know what you're getting into, don't you? You know, if you're going robbing stuff and you get caught, you know you're going to get some kind of punishment. Just glad I didn't go borstal.
It did have an effect on you.
I wasn't a great criminal. I was caught. I was nicked pretty early, and I was like, it's not for me. You know, I haven't got the criminal gene. I'll try something a bit more artistic, I think. I'm not great at crime.
The musical ambitions, it is said, they came from seeing the Smiths on TV, but is that right?
Well, it's a gradual thing with music. The Beatles have always been there. Someone asked me the other day in an interview, when did you first listen to the Beatles? And I was saying, well, when does anybody first listen to the Beatles? They're just always there, do you know what I mean? And Top of the Pops is a massive influence on people from my generation. I went from seeing T-Rex and David Bowie all the way through to the 80s and, you know, appearing on it, do you know what I mean? So it's a huge deal for me, or was a huge deal for me, Top of the Pops. But it's like the Sex Pistols I was into. I was just too young for them, but the first band that I'd seen and had a connection with was The Jam, and seeing The Jam on the Old Grey Whistle Test. And after that was the Smiths and New Order, and they were from Manchester, and that was mind-blowing. And then, but the first band that I seen that I thought I can do that was the Stone Roses, and I thought I could do it, and then it took off from there, really.
And in that spell when you were doing various jobs, working for your dad in his concrete company and then other jobs, were you one of those people who thought that you would get out of it, that you would make something of it, or that was it?
I never had any ambitions, because it just didn't happen to people like me. There was nobody like me on TV, so how could it possibly happen? Where I come from in Burnage, I was the only person in the whole of that area, seemingly, that was interested in anything other than City. And I used to go in, when everyone else was kind of, you know, experimenting with cars and drinking lager, I was going into town to see, like, bands and stuff like that, and I thought I was weirdo, do you know what I mean? And a chance meeting took place one night when I was at a Stone Roses gig, and I noticed there was a guy on the balcony with a Walkman. Remember those? Fascinating things. And there was a red light on, and he was bootlegging the gig, and I went up and I asked him, because the Stone Roses hadn't put an album out there, and I loved them, and I needed, you know, to hear those songs, kind of thing. And I asked him for a tape, and it turns out he was a guitarist. We got talking, and he asked me what other bands I liked, and I said this band, Inspiral Carpets. Turns out he was the guitarist.
Graham Lambert.
He was Graham Lambert, yeah. And I didn't recognise him, and I'd seen them a lot. I'd been to see them, and so he said that the singer at the time was leaving, and would I audition to be the singer, because I knew the songs. And I said, yeah, wow, great. And I didn't get it. Obviously, I couldn't really sing until about 4 years ago, and I was only kind of 21 at the time. And but they asked me to be their roadie, and then that's where it kind of took off for me. You know, I met, because where I came from, nobody was in the music game, nobody at all. Nobody came from Burnage, no one. And then I just met, it's where I met Mark Coyle on a tour bus. He was, produced our first album. It's where I met loads of people. And once you're around like-minded people, that's when it starts, you know. And then when I was kind of, sound checking equipment, and then I had, I wouldn't call it a dream, but I thought I could easily do this. Just got to find the right people.
And is that when you started writing songs?
No, I started writing songs maybe before that, but not only. I started playing the guitar. There was a guitar in our house behind a door. Still, nobody's got to the bottom of why that guitar was there, because nobody could ever play it, unless my mum's kind of had a secret bluegrass pick. I don't know. And I used to get grounded a lot for robbing and stuff, and not being at school. And I learned to play Joy Division bass lines on one string, and then I went to 2 strings, and then the first thing I could play was House of the Rising Sun. So once you can play a few chords, the next thing is to write a song. And But I didn't really start writing songs with any seriousness until I joined Oasis.
So when you were writing Inspiral Carpets, you were on a US tour, you came back. It was, in effect, it was Liam who got you into the...
Well, it wasn't in the States, so it was on a European tour. I was in Munich, and I called home, the weekly phone call, asked my mum how everything was, and I asked how Liam was. Maybe the only time I've ever asked how Liam was ever on a phone call. And she said I was out rehearsing, and I was kind of, what? Rehearsing what? And she said, he's in a band and he's the singer, and I laughed. I couldn't believe it. All those years I'd spent sharing a room with him, and I'd playing the guitar, and he'd be sat staring at me, just going, "Learn as a fiver, learn as a fiver, learn as a fiver, learn as a fiver." He'd, "Get out, fiver," and never dawned on either of us that And I was like, he's a singer in a band. And by the time I got back to Manchester, they were doing a gig. And I went to see them, and I thought they had something. They had a couple of songs, and I thought they were good. And I was shocked at him on stage, and I was like, wow, doesn't look out of place, And one thing led to another. They asked me to be their manager. So I was like, manager? I don't want to be a manager. And they badgered me into going to rehearse with them for a while, and then one Sunday I just went, and joined in, and the rest is history.
And we have to talk about some of that history. It was control. I mean, even from early on, it was about who would be in charge.
Well, no, there is. Yeah, that's a great story, and we all might have played that up at the beginning. But our first ever gig, there is a cassette of it going around somewhere. It's not all my songs. It's mostly their songs and maybe two of mine. And but I got the bug pretty quickly when I heard my songs being played back to me by this band in a room. Something happened, and then I started to write furiously. And the next day was like, try this. And then I got on such a mission with it that it quickly became apparent that I was writing so many songs, I became the songwriter. But there is the myth that I went in and said, before we go any further, I want you to know that I'll be writing all the songs. And that was a great story at the time, but it's not strictly true. And everybody was quite prepared to let me, do it at the time.
But it is one of the fault lines, isn't it? Because in a lot of the splits in bands, there just is this division between the songwriter or songwriters and the rest. Because for a start, they make they make a lot more money, and it's very hard to avoid that in bands, isn't it?
I guess you'd have to speak to the others. Do you know what I mean?
But the songwriter has a status.
Well, yeah, but what I will say to that is, I never said to anybody else, "You are not allowed to write songs. This is my thing." Nobody was bothered up until 1999 or year 2000 when Liam wrote his first song. They would have been doing me a favour if they'd have wrote some of the B-sides, because the third album would have been a lot better.
Another of the great stories from the early days, which will be when they make the movie about Oasis, is that the 1993 gig that you played, and Alan McGee, Creation Records, came to it, that you almost didn't play that gig. That is true, is it?
It is true. The true story is, we shared a rehearsal space in a club called the Boardwalk in Manchester with an all-girl band called Sister Lover. And so one of the girls, named Debbie Turner, was either an ex-girlfriend or a girlfriend of Alan McGee's, and she had a gig supporting a band that Alan McGee had just signed called 18 Wheeler, all the way up in Glasgow. Why we thought it was a great idea to go all the way to Glasgow, I still not got to the bottom of that. But she said, "Oh, come up and play with us." But it wasn't her gig, it was someone else's gig. So anyway, by the time we get there, they hadn't got a licence for 3 bands or something. They could only have 2. But we'd come all the way. Now, the legend has it that we walked into the promoter's office or the manager's office and closed the door behind us and said, "We will raise this building to the floor if you don't let us play." Anybody who's been up into Glasgow, you don't get away with that kind of shit up there. Do you know what I mean? So there was none of that. We kind of said, "Look, come on, man, we've come all this way." And he said, "You can have 20 minutes as the doors open." Luckily for us, Alan McGee turned up early, and we played the 20 minutes. And I remember walking off stage. The band was still playing. We used to do this version of I'm the Walrus by the Beatles, and it would go on for ages. And I remember walking off stage, and I just bumped into Alan McGee, and he said, "What's your band called?" And I said, "Oasis." And he said, "Have you got a record deal?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Do you want one?" And I said, "Yes." And that was it.
Were you ever suspicious of record companies or management?
No. I was always of the fact that we should get signed to the biggest record label, whoever they are, get the most money as possible. I was very confident in our band. I was very confident in the songs that I was writing, and I thought the record label and what they can give to us is really irrelevant, because once it's out there, and it'll be unstoppable. I believed that. I believed it. Everybody else said the words, but I actually believed it. When 93 and 94, and I said we were going to be the biggest band in the world, people did kind of go, wow. You know, I was absolutely 100% positive that it was going to happen.
Was it a complication that either of you could have sung those songs?
No, I couldn't sing then.
Right.
I wasn't interested. I started to sing by default because Liam, you know, was a bit erratic in his timekeeping sometimes. I'll put it like that, nicely, you know. And I sing the odd B-side, and I gradually grew into it, and then gradually began to love it, you know. And then towards the end of Oasis, round about, you know, 2005 time, became good at it. It took me a long time, but I found my voice, do you know what I mean? And it wasn't something that came naturally to me, or it wasn't an obsession with mine. It was just I did it because, you know, Liam needed a break for some reason, and you know, halfway through the gig, bless my voice, you know, like Pavarotti. And although he wasn't going to the side and gargling honey and lemon, he was having a cigar or something, smoking a pipe. But yeah, it's kind of something that just kind of crept up on me. But yeah, I like it. It's a great thing to learn to sing. Amazing.
Another huge stage in the story, as you know, was the whole Blair versus Oasis thing. Was that manufactured by journalists and PR people, or was it genuine for you?
In honesty, and the truth is this, it was manufactured by the NME and people in Blair's camp who moved their single to coincide with ours. And what really annoyed us at the time is everybody blamed it on us because we were kind of seen as media manipulators. That's what annoyed me at the time. Looking back on it now, it was brilliant. It's kind of things like that don't happen anymore. It was on News at 10 and all that kind of thing, you know what I mean? And it was great. The episode of the band slagging each other off is quite unnecessary because we all kind of had a certain amount of respect for each other, do you know what I mean? And I guess we were all too drunk or too high to say otherwise, you know what I mean? But when I make no bones about it, I revelled in the fact of slagging other bands off, you know.
It was built up by a lot of people into a class thing, the Oasis, working class versus Blur, middle class. It was even, there were whole articles saying that whether you preferred one band or the other, reveal what class you were.
Look, it was...
Were you ever into all that? The class
Not class warfare. I might have been a bit more militant when I was on the dole. Not really. But with that whole Blur Oasis thing, it was the media's wet dream. You know, it was like, it couldn't be any more contrasting. There's these lot from Manchester, and there's these lot from Colchester, and they went to art school, and they were robbing shit, you know, and it's kind of like, they both got singles. I mean, we all sold a lot of records and became wealthy off the back of it, so I'm not moaning about it now. But I've met Damon recently, a couple of months ago, and I hadn't seen him for years and years, maybe 15 years, you know. And we literally bumped into each other in a nightclub, and we had a beer, and we kind of had a bit of a laugh about it, and was like, wasn't it? It was great, wasn't it? You know. And we were bemoaning the state of music now, and now, you know, things like that don't get on the News at 10 anymore.
You've been quite open, and you've mentioned in this interview that you were out of your head for quite a bit of the 90s. Is that inevitable because it happens to so many people in the rock business?
Part of the game. It's part of the game. I don't want to... you shouldn't glorify it, because evidently people get messed up. Do you know what I mean? But it's part of the game. And it was part of the game that I was more than willing to get involved in. Free drugs. Free. You don't even have to pay for them.
Do you regret it at all?
No, because I came out the other side. But, you know, I was wise enough to come out the other end, and just once I'd done it all, it's like, this is bullshit. I'm glad I did it, but I'm glad I don't do it as well, you know what I mean?
One of the things which is one of your jobs was to predict, in effect, what the hits would be, that you have these songs and you have the album, what the single will be. Did you generally know? I mean, did you have an instinct for that?
I lost it for a while, yeah. I'm good at it now. I would...
But Wonderwall, Don't Look Back in Anger, you knew, basically, that those were...
Yeah, I know enough about music, and I've got enough records and read enough music magazines, and I was obsessed about it enough from the age of 13, whatever it was, to know when I wrote that song, Live Forever, I knew that in the canon of songs, not just mine, in anybody's, that's a great song. And I'm big-headed enough to say it as well, do you know what I mean? Because it's a fact. And Wonderwall and Don't Look Back in Anger and all the other #1 singles, yeah. For a while, I'd lost interest in it, around about the time of between Be Here Now and Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. I was in a different place with it. I'd kind of my passion for music had gone somewhat, and I was kind of in a different place. I wasn't bothered, you know. I was just like, well, I was doing it for the sake of it, you know. But in the early days and now, yeah.
The huge gigs, Nebworth, Main Road, which had obvious huge associations for you as Manchester City's ground at that time. The sense, the power you had over that crowd and those huge crowds, were you ever frightened by that, or was it just exhilaration?
I don't know. I don't get stage fright. I get excitement, which is a different thing. You read stories about people throwing up before they go on a stage. What's all that about? You know, no, they're there to see you. They want you to be brilliant. Half of them are out of their mind anyway. They wouldn't know if you were singing out of tune or playing out of time, you know, even if they watched it back on a video. No, we could play, we could do it. Once you know you can do it, it's fine. None of us in that band were shrinking violets. Liam wasn't a wallflower. He thought it was the greatest thing since sliced cheese. You know, I thought I was the greatest thing since, you know, freeze-dried noodle in a plastic container. And yeah, we knew we were good. And walking out on there is just like, that's it. That is it. It doesn't get any better than that. And the stadiums and all that kind of... I prefer stadiums than small gigs. Stadiums are an incredible spectacle. When I'm on a stage, I'm watching 70,000 people on a night out. I'll tell you this, it is an unbelievable thing when all that crowd are bouncing at the same time to a song that you wrote 10, 15 years ago. It's an amazing, amazing thing.
Meeting Tony Blair at number 10. Do you regret that?
No. 1997 it was, I believe. I'd only signed off the Dole 4 years earlier, and I arrived at 10 Downing Street in a Rolls Royce. I laughed all the way there thinking, what a trip. What an absolute trip this is. the Labour Party were only too willing to reach out to the artistic community.
Well, they were using you,
for
weren't
validation.
they?
Using me for what? To get into power, great, and to bring in the minimum wage. Well, you are welcome. You know, and they were reaching out to the artistic community. Alan McGee got involved with them, and you know, he'd said they want to meet you, and I was like, and why not? You know, of course they do. Why wouldn't they want to meet me? And he said there was some do going on. And I knew I was going to cop a lot of flack for it, going there, you know. I wasn't going there thinking, you know, I'm better than anybody else, or, you know, I'm only here because I'm me. I can't help that, you know.
I'm very interested in what you said, particularly about Oasis, because it's commonly written that it was always going to blow at some point, and the tensions were always there from the beginning. But you suggested they weren't, that it only got seriously tricky later on.
Yeah, yeah. But it was never going to end like REM have ended, round a table, you know, all amicable, and said, yeah, we really should call it a day. It was always going to end in a fight of some description. Everybody was aware of that, do you know what I mean? We all wanted it to last forever. I certainly did, do you know what I mean? But I was always aware that when it came to it, that one of us would eventually, you know, say F you and you and you and you and you. And that just happened to be me. It could well have been Liam. But it's not something you can't live your life regrets like that. It's like, it was a great trip. I think maybe it was inevitable that I would walk out. Because I've got a pretty long fuse and pretty thick skin until the day that I haven't. And then it's like, no. I'm out of here.
And without going blow by blow, the final encounter, 2009.
The final round.
Yeah. What was it that took you over the edge?
Well, there was a gradual thing that had gone on for most of that tour. There was just a lot of personal insults, but not to my face, do you know what I mean? And my missus was getting brought into it through no fault of her own. And it just felt this is all really unnecessary. I'm going to do everybody a favour by leaving. But the final straw was he kind of slung a guitar around the dressing room, and it's dangerous, do you know what I mean? And in the end, there was just like, you know what? Nobody's enjoying this, do you know what I mean? I do regret not doing the gig. We only have 2 gigs left. Could have just done the gigs and gone away and cooled down a little bit. But we're not, you know, we're Mancunians, and, you know, it's something quite special about walking out.
It was presumably pretty emotional to walk out, was it?
Well, yeah, it's a big decision. I knew, Liam was very, very wound up and angry, and I was quite calm in the dressing room, which served to wind him up even more. You know what I mean? If you're like furious with someone and someone's kind of quite calm, that annoys you, doesn't it? It annoys my wife a great deal. And but when I left the dressing room and I left the site and sat in the car for 5 minutes, I knew that if I'd said to the driver, drive, that was it. The band was over. And that was a long 5 minutes. And I was with my security guard who sat in the front, and there was a driver, and I was sat in the back, and he just turned around and he said, "What are we doing? We're staying or going?" And I just said, "Fuck it, let's go." And that was it. And I never thought about the aftermath. I never thought about... From that second, I'd left, and that was it. And it was just a case of, you know, going on holiday and taking some time off and seeing what it is I wanted to do, you know. And that was it. I never thought about the rest of the lads. I never thought about the people in the field waiting for us to go. We were due on in 5 minutes, you know. I never thought about them or the crew or what it meant to people or the legal storm that it would bring after all that. I never thought of any of that. It was just like, I've quit, that's it, I'm gone.
Did you cry?
No, only cry at football matches. Yeah, I shed a tear when we beat United in the semi-final of the FA Cup, and when my children were born, but crying, it's for girls, isn't it?
Final question on Liam, you'll be relieved to know, but do you exchange Christmas cards and texts, or is it total silence?
No, we never did. We're not that kind of family. We've seen each other on a regular basis in the band, and you know, when you're not in the band, you're spending time with your family. Do you know what I mean?
So there's no contact?
No. None of any significance. No. Much to my mother's disgust, I have to say. But, you know, there you go. It's kind of, you know, we've got big boys now and all that, so she can't tell us what to do forever, can she?
Do you just accept that that's it, probably?
No, of course it's not. It won't be the last time I'm ever going to speak to him. Of course I'm going to speak to him again. It's just, I'm busy. I'm doing my thing. He's doing his thing. There's no need to get involved in any of that at the moment. Do you know what I mean?
Do you accept that nothing you do can be as big as Oasis?
Absolutely. Nothing anybody does can be as big as Oasis. Not Coldplay, not Kasabian, not the Arctic Monkeys, in this country, not U2, not any of them. It's as simple as that. It's not only it's not only me that lives up to that legacy, it's everyone else who's got to live it down. We were the last. We were the greatest. The end.
Finally, looking back at your career, the creation of Oasis, I mean, you were ambitious and you were driven and you went out and you worked very hard for it. Are you still ambitious, or are you satisfied now?
In the early days, I was ambitious that we were going to become the biggest band in the world. And for a brief point, we were the biggest band in the world. We sold the most tickets and sold the most records, ergo, the biggest band in the world. Done it then, and then it was just like, I just want to enjoy it now, you know. But I've never been one, or wasn't in the early days, for like sticking it out and see what happens. You know what I mean? I was single-minded in, we were going to take it to the top. Because what could be worse, I felt, than having all this potential and it just come to nothing, like the Libertines or something like that, you know. Potentially could have been one of the greats, but this drugs and booze and can't be arsed just blew it. Do you know what I mean? I was determined that we weren't going to blow it, and I've got you know, I've had this reputation since the band has split up of being called a control freak and all that kind of thing, and you know, and I controlled them all the way to Nebworth and Wembley, and all the way to the top of the charts. So you're welcome.
Noel Gallagher, thank you.
Thank you very much.